Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Palace. It has been an absolutely chaotic 48 hours plus. It has been absolutely chaotic. Glasner's not going to get sacked. Glasner comments were absolutely crazy. We lose to Sunderland. Marc Guehi's gone. Glasner's announced he's leaving. We're going to be covering all of that today. As always, I'm with Henry. How are you doing, mate? And explain to us why Friday was so special, not just because Glasner was leaving, but it was a celebration for you, right?
It was my 23rd birthday, but it was kind of overshadowed by all of that shit. As people would have seen on my Twitter, I got a nice new Palace shirt, so that's nice. But yeah, it's been crazy, hasn't it? It's been mental couple of days. Everything changing a lot, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So yeah, let's just crack on.
Yeah, so first we'll talk a little bit about the Sunderland game yesterday, easy to cover, and then that'll easily segue us into some lovely comments from Glasner. But overall, for me, I thought first half was decent, great finish by Pino, but the defense for the Sunderland goal, the first Sunderland goal, was absolutely crazy. It was so bad. Second half was awful, awful in my opinion. I was at the game. Second half, it just felt weak, and you could just feel a Sunderland goal was coming, and that's what happened. I'm guessing your thoughts are similar, Henry. But anything like big you want to bring up? Any important talking points?
No, I think you're right. The first goal that we conceded, especially so soon after scoring, a really nice goal from Pino as well. To be fair to him, I think it's important to say that. I saw a lot of people saying, he doesn't actually get any credit when he does do stuff well, but people are very quick to give him stick, which is fair enough. So yeah, it was a very nice goal, really well taken finish. But the defending for that first goal that we conceded was just schoolboy. What is Lerma doing? I mean, you got three players, you got two of your teammates are already pressing the man, and he just runs out, and it leaves so much space in behind. And then it's a decent ball in, but it doesn't need to be very special, and it's an easy finish. The winners a really good finish in fairness to Robbie, and I think Sunderland probably did deserve to win. And I said a couple of weeks back that I wouldn't be surprised if they go the whole year unbeaten at home because they are just unbelievable there. So yeah, just echo your thoughts really.
Yeah, we were kind of saying in our last pod a draw would have been decent. We would have taken that. That's a very tough ground to go to. But it kind of felt like when we got that lead, we just buckled. Like for me, it felt very good to get that lead against them, and we just buckled, and to concede so quickly after was absolutely crazy. The big talking point for me on that game, before we get into the proper big talking points, as in the Glasgow comments, no substitutions. Now we have both, me and you, moaned about the lack of squad depth, etc. However, to not use a single sub feels crazy, right?
Yeah, and also especially with like the response, like in the comments afterwards that kind of followed up on that because like when you look through that bench, it's not that strong, but there's definitely players on there that you could have gone to try and change the game. Like we may as well kind of touch on those comments purely about the subs whilst we talk about it. To suggest that Christian Tasuce has been given plenty of chances is just absolutely incorrect. That's just not fair. And also, when he has been given chances, he's done really well. The few games that he started, he scored in two of those. He was unbelievable for us in the Conference League. He's been kind of like the only player that's been able to create a bit of magic for himself. I mean, the goal against Cups was brilliant. And I just think it's a really weird way to scapegoat. And quite frankly, to go after a 16-year-old, to name drop him, is just absolutely like that. For me, there's a couple of things that he said that have like absolutely lost the fans for me. And one of them is going after a 16-year-old. Why are you name dropping Joel Drakes Thomas and being like, well, I see him in training. He's not ready. He's not going to change a game. There's just no need for it. You don't need to say that in public. You don't need to make that public knowledge. So I just don't understand it. I think the main issue with the lack of subs is also because he's so stubborn and doesn't want to change the system. And ultimately, we have spoke about that before. He sticks with Plan A, and if Plan A doesn't work, we don't win games. And it's very simple. There's not really like any idea to kind of change to a back four when you've lost Marc Guehi or when there's been injuries at centre back when Richards has been out, which kind of takes away from the whole thing that he says, well, I only play a five at the back because it suits the players. Well, Munoz is out, and we had Richards out for ages, so it didn't suit the players. So why have you persisted with it? And that's kind of been part of why we've lost 10. Well, we've not won in 10 games, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I found it weird that, he had to name drop the 16-year-old. I did find that weird. I did find it weird that last 10 minutes he didn't try and go to a four at the back, just put on Uche with Mateta. I just thought we were null of ideas in that second half. We weren't creating anything. So what's the difference? What's the difference in losing 3-1 when you're going through this really rough patch to 2-1? At least we maybe would have seen a bit more effort, and maybe the crowd reaction at the end of the game would have been a little bit different. It was a few jeers, it was a few boos because, we just felt like they gave up in the second half. And that, again, has led to the mentality issue we've had at the moment. The morale's low, and we could see it, and it's getting into the crowd now. It's getting into the away end, so why not give it a go? That felt really, really crazy. And yeah, Uche, look, he's 22. I think we've got to remember this as well. Uche is still a young player. Yes, he's a loan signing. That's a different argument. Should your loan signings be young players when you're pushing on into Europe? Maybe not. But he's got potential, and he's going to need confidence to get that potential. So again, throwing him under the bus doesn't seem like the correct decision to do there. Glasner's comments, he's a heat at the moment guy. It's happened multiple times now after press conferences. When he's angry, he's not been able to control how far he goes with his comments. And that's kind of what happened yesterday, innit, Henry? Obviously, we'll dive more into that actual comments, but it does feel like a heat at the moment. Arguably a passionate response to being frustrated, or is it more just a heat at the moment, toys out the pram?
It comes across more as toys out the pram, and the more I think about it, and I don't know if you've seen the clip when he was at Eintracht and his kind of like very shouty press conference. Obviously, I don't speak a word of German, but you can kind of understand what he's saying because he said similar at Palace, and you can kind of see his facial expressions and see what he's thinking. The more I think about it, though, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this, the more I'm actually like, he actually never takes responsibility when we lose. It's never his fault. And I don't understand it. It's never, like the system was the wrong choice, or the setup, we set up wrong for this game, etc., etc. There's always an excuse. And whenever we've lost and it's been under kind of bad circumstances or surrounded by bad circumstances, there's always this reaction, and there's always a kind of jab and a bite back and a kind of shouting out about what's unfair and what he's not happy with. And look, I've been very vocal. The video I put out this morning, I said, look, you can blame Parish as much as you can blame Glasner for me. I don't know why people are kind of sitting on one side or the other. Both of them are responsible for what's happening right now, for different reasons, of course, because they're in different roles and they have different responsibilities. But, we're 10 games without a win, and Glasner talks about wanting a new challenge. And again, I said it yesterday, he's not dealing with the challenge that we're in now. He's 10 games without a win, which is kind of unheard of for him at Palace, especially when you've got games against Leeds, Sunderland, Macclesfield in there being the key one. Where's the tactical adaptability? Where's the kind of changing things up when it's not going your way in a game? There's no reaction to how a game's playing out. We're playing against Macclesfield, and he only went to a back four in the second half when it was evident from the start that the back five wasn't working. I just really struggle to understand what the thinking is behind a lot of the decisions, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like last season he was a lot more accepting of when stuff didn't go our way, in terms of he would accept if it was his fault. I feel like start of the season that felt the same, and over the last few months that's definitely changed. Is that to protect his own reputation long term? That's what lots of people seem to think. Definitely a fair argument. No one's actually going to know the genuine reason why, but that is definitely a plausible reason. The comments are very, in our live stream right now, are very 50-50. People are saying Glasner should go, Glasner should resign, Glasner should have been sacked. And it just shows the mess it is. This should not be what we're talking about. This should not be a video we're doing 6 months after winning the FA Cup. And I did a video as well. This should not even be a debate. This should not be a discussion. This should be, even if Glasner told us on Friday, or a month or two before he was leaving, this should be, he'll get a good send-off at the end of the season, because, we have done special things with him and he has helped us achieve something that fans never thought they'd see.
Do you not think he's such a hypocrite, though? Like the whole thing about we're selling our captain a day before and I only find out a day before. How does he,
This is confusing.
What does he think that like the impact that he has on the club by coming out and saying, yeah, well, you know, to be honest, I've just been fucking lying to all of you for the last 3 months. You know, I was telling you that it was really busy and we haven't had time to chat. But in reality, I told Parish in October that I'd made my decision. I wouldn't be staying. I just thought I'd lie and kind of keep it up and not tell anyone. I don't see what the point is. And also, especially to kind of be like it. And I said this again, it feels like he thinks he's at a big club. Right, he is not at a big club. If we get an offer like 35 million for our captain, who we would otherwise lose on a free in 6 months' time, and we're performing how we are going to take that offer. Like, that's just how it is at Palace. It's why we lost Eze. It's why we've lost Guehi. It's why we sold Elise. It's why we will sell Munoz and Wharton and probably Lacroix at some point. And that's why Juventus are able to come in and try and pry away Mateta, because they are bigger clubs than us. Like, this is just the reality of the situation. I just found it really to be honest, found it really hypocritical for him to kind of come out swinging about the Guehi situation in particular, when he also in that same press conference announced that he was going to leave without giving the club any prior warning. You know, from what I understand and what I've been told, like nobody knew that was coming. He just dropped the fucking bomb, right?
It does feel like that. It does feel like Friday definitely wasn't something that Parish knew was going to happen. I do think saying abandoned in a press in his quotes when he's kind of said he's leaving us the day prior feels a bit contradictory, like you're saying. He must have known stuff to do with Guehi. Maybe he thought it was going to get him for this weekend, and that's what changed, and that's what he's maybe referring to. Because I personally believe Marc Guehi should have been playing that game, because it's clearly not even finished yet. I never wanted to sell him, so I'm clearly going to be very biased in wanting him to play. But the argument, obviously, the other way, and probably the way you're thinking as well, is he could have got injured. We would have lost out on that money.
I don't care, but for what it's worth, like I completely agree with you. I would have rather we kept Marc Guehi, but I'm just trying to be realistic with the fact that the club were never going to turn that down. We were kind of, like I said as well, we were kind of given like almost a lifeline in terms of we can still make some money for him, and they were never going to turn it down, especially now that we know that Glasner had already said he wasn't sticking around. So I think that probably played into it. But I completely agree to kind of, you know, I would have preferred he played, but I can also understand that City maybe were like, well, we don't want him playing, otherwise we're just going to pull out of the deal. And ultimately as well, you never know what Mark said, because, you know, he's been very loyal to this club. We paid him next to nothing really for a professional footballer of his standards for the last 4 years, and yeah, that's his choice. But ultimately, he's always kind of given everything for us, other than against Macclesfield, where now it kind of makes sense that maybe he knew that move coming and he was just trying to play to avoid an injury. Who knows? But I just think it's the whole thing's very messy. And I think it's also very easy for Glasner to kind of be like, well, Marc Guehi's leaving, and that's why everything's gone to shit. But I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah. He wants to be known as an elite manager. If that's the case, he needs to be able to deal with the tough situations and not be fed the dummy every time. You know what I mean? You know, he can't just be spoon-fed everything at this club. He definitely would have known that. I don't think he's naive enough, like his comments are suggesting, to say that we could get so many more players in. We could be consistently battling top 8 every season, and it's going to be financially possible for a club our size. And I actually saw a video someone did, I think he was a Brentford fan, talking about the situation. And he went, wherever Glasner goes next, he's probably going to be picking up players from clubs like Crystal Palace, because he knows that he can poach them. So I think it's he definitely knows that we can't just be keeping all these players. Mateta didn't want to sign a contract. There's nothing we can do about that if he goes. Marc Guehi did not want to sign a contract. He did not even want a contract with a release clause. So you can not lay blame to Guehi, but, you know, he wanted to move on. He wanted to test himself. Eze put a release clause in for a reason, and he made sure that release clause was going to be used last summer. He felt like he peaked at Crystal Palace. There was nothing else he could do because he wanted to then move to the bigger club. We have that situation as a Crystal Palace, and we've seen it when West Ham won a trophy. We saw it when Leicester won trophies. All their players got poached, typically by the big 6 clubs, with ease. Rice went for 100 mil, and Arsenal dropped that like it was nothing at the time. You know,
well, even just like the price they paid for Eze, and they're not even playing him.
Yeah, he's currently a bench player, and he costs 60 mil for them, and that's easy. We are spending We've never spent 35 mil this January was the most we've ever spent on one player, you know. So there is a completely different ballpark. And Glasner, however much I love him, he definitely knows that. And he probably does want to help improve the facilities behind the scenes or improve the club stature. But there's a peak. There is sadly a peak. When we lifted that trophy and we were in Europe, Palace fans are like, wow, this is a peak for us, you know. We know these players are going to be very highly touted now, what they've done. They've been special for us. 19 games undefeated. Players are going to want to come and go, you know. So, yeah, it's so tough. And then we'll dive into, obviously, Glasner saying, I don't care, you know, I don't care. I've seen the quotes. It sounds a little bit like the full quote should have been shown in terms of what he's trying to say. But I'm not trying to defend him here. They're still horrendous quotes to say, right?
Awful. And for me, it's also the fact that he's like not only doubled down, not only tripled down, but like quadrupled and quintupled down. Like he said it in the initial interview. He then went and said it to the BBC long form interview, the Sky Sports interview, and then in the press conference afterwards, and then to the written journalists after the broadcasted press conference. I mean, he literally, it's not like he was angry and he reacted. He clearly had this planned out and wanted to make this point. And I just think it's fucking stupid, to be honest. Excuse my language, but it's just so frustrating. I do not understand. Like, to come out and essentially say, I don't really care what happens now. You know, you either have me, you don't have me, whatever. That's ultimately what he said. That's not acceptable. I mean, that's not acceptable in the slightest. As I also said, I'm pretty sure that kind of goes against his contract as a manager. Like, to kind of be, I don't really care what happens to Palace. That's not really on a moral standpoint, let alone like a legal one. And ultimately, the reality is, and I still can't believe it, like any other football club sacks him. I cannot believe. I mean, the more I think about it, the more there's reasons for it. I just want to say as well, like, I've had a fair bit of heat because obviously yesterday I said, you know, he's gone tonight. I was told that by multiple very good sources. The same sources that told me about Brennan Johnson when I teased that 2 days before it was announced. The same sources that have told me about other things that I've got right. Yes, I've got some things wrong. Some things haven't come to fruition just yet. But I was speaking to a guy very senior at TalkSport as well last night who had heard the exact same thing as me. So I just want to put that out there because for some reason people love to hate and love to kind of wish on your downfall. Like the second it was announced that he was staying, I was at it like 6 or 7 times by like the same handful of pricks, and it was just like, mate, like I'm not trying to be in the know, right? I create Palace content. I talk about Palace. If I'm told something that I would want to know if I wasn't in the position I am, I pass it on, right? There's a few people that I message consistently, obviously Luke, you're included. And then there's also sometimes like yesterday where I put some stuff out on my Twitter, right? It's not that deep. Sometimes things change. What do you think happened? Parish went to sleep. He slept on it. He met with Glasner this morning and he realised that he made the right decision, in my opinion, because actually, ultimately, all of the power is in our hands now as a club. Because if Glasner wants to leave, he will have to resign, which obviously means he writes off any sort of payoff he gets. It also means that he's now almost on trial at the club because what's he going to do? Stay around and strop and get us relegated and then not be able to walk into a big job? Yeah. Exactly. So it's a smart move from Parish. But at the same time, I genuinely cannot believe that he's not been sacked. I think it's absolutely bonkers. And I think he wanted to be sacked. He did the Ruben Amorim. He did the Enzo Maresca. Yeah. He tried to push the club's hand. It would have given him 6 months off, probably before he walks into the Spurs job. And also, genuinely, I will say it as well, do not be surprised if he's not sacked in a week's time or 10 days' time when Thomas Frank leaves Spurs. It would make perfect sense. And again, Palace keeping him and not sacking him means that we're in a position where if he was to go to Spurs, we would get some compensation. Like, the reality of it is that it's a situation that is going to change very fast. I think the kind of knee-jerk reaction from Parish would have been to sack him. And that probably wouldn't have been a wrong decision, in all honesty. But having slept on it and thought about it, he's probably made a right call because now all of the cards are in our hand. Glasner is ultimately powerless. What he can walk and it just kind of paints a really bad image on him, like he's the kind of manager and the kind of guy that's not up for a challenge, that can't hack it when the chips are down, etc., etc. So look, like I did want to just make it clear that I didn't just make that up. I've got no reason to do that. I was told things by so many, like, and everybody that's like in the know, I guess you could say, that I was talking to had heard the exact same thing. I just shared it because I thought people would want to know and would be interested. So yeah, that's my little kind of personal rant out of the way.
Yeah, Carl thought that he was going to be sacked Monday.
I mean, and Carl's kind of as much of an in the know as anyone, right? He's got
yeah. So he thought he was going to be going Monday. He was quite surprised he wasn't. So something's happened in them talks, and the positives to take from that is they were both at them talks. So clearly Glasner's
with boxing gloves on.
Yeah, like they've had to hopefully settle or create the peace, should I say. I would not be shocked if Glasner apologised. I don't know. I'd apologise in a press conference. I feel like he probably has to, because no matter what you think about what he said or how he feels, his comments have hurt the fan base, a lot of the fan base, and that's he's normally a gentleman of the game. He never moans about stuff in terms of refereeing decisions. He never, uses that as an excuse. He does feel like a gentleman of the game, but yeah, his comments have been the complete opposite of that, and it's like a lot of the fan base. Well, I don't want to say a lot because I'm not speaking for everyone, but a lot of people have, changed their tune on him. They fully wanted him
massively. Yeah. And I think also the only counter I'd have to that is I agree with you generally, but the way he was like, "Oh, I've kept my mouth shut all this time." It's like, no, you haven't. You were speaking about it a couple of weeks ago when he started moaning about it. So that's not entirely true that you've kind of just sat there and been a good boy and gone along with it. Like, you have moaned about it, which is fair enough. I think he's entitled to do that. And ultimately, this is exactly it. And exactly. And to kind of come out and say that he doesn't care and that he's been abandoned. And also for me, how on earth can he now go into training tomorrow morning and face that squad of players outside of his 12 players that he mentioned, right? What's Uche going to be thinking? What are all the academy boys going to be thinking that are obviously working exceptionally hard to get this opportunity? It just is going to create... I don't know how they stop it from creating a massive divide in the dressing room between the guaranteed starters that he obviously likes and everyone else. Because you'd imagine that would include, his comments, Camvo, it would include Uche, it would also include Esse, obviously, because he went. I just think that it was just such an unnecessary issue to cause. And also, it's not by any means being kind of kept internally. He's literally come out and put it all out, and I just don't understand the benefits of that.
Yeah, I think the only, not like countering it properly, but players these days, they just know that this is the game and they just have to react. And if some of them are upset by the comments, I mean, Uche might not even be here past the summer. He'll be thinking that. Campbell will be thinking Glasner won't be here past the summer.
Yeah, he's got another 5 years left or something.
Yeah, I'll just impress the next manager, and this is just how footballers react. And I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Johnson must be feeling crap right now." But in my opinion, I feel like he would have maybe known something a little bit or had a little inkling he wasn't going to stay. And most managers only have a couple of years lifelines in the Premier League anyways, in terms of the length they stay. So these players, although they want to play for the manager and play under the manager that signs them, they all know that they could be playing under multiple managers over their time at one club. And that's just how football is these days. So it's a bit cutthroat, and I think they'll just have to get up, move on, and try and prove him wrong. I don't think they'll get too many opportunities to do that now. But it is what it is. So are we both of the feeling, me and you, that keeping him for now is the right decision, or are you still torn?
I'm really torn, mate. I think that he's an idiot, to be honest. I think he's naive and he's made some really... for me, it's more the fact that it's kind of like the blame game. I just don't like. I don't rate it. I think that, like I said as well, like, he is not very tactically flexible, right? He talks about wanting this new challenge, and he kind of talks about us as if he's already above us and he's kind of better than us. But you've not won for 10 games with us. Like, you're not going to get you wouldn't even be allowed to have that press conference after the 10th game without a win at a club like Man United. I know that we talk about Ruben Amorim, but Ruben Amorim's kind of always done the kind of two losses, a draw, and then a win, and two losses, a draw, and then a win. It's kind of kept him going. But at a massive club, you don't get 10 games without a win. That doesn't happen. You will be under pressure straight away. And for me, the main thing is like I said, that it's the tactics. I just don't understand. It's always the same thing. And he talks about wanting to try different formations and preferring a 4 at the back. Do it then, because now we've lost Guehi. A 5 does not suit us. Right, you can still allow Munoz to attack from right back in a back 4, but a 5 at the back does not suit us because we do not have 3 starting quality Premier League level centre backs. We have Richards and Lacroix, and then we have JD Canvo. Also, if you switch to a 4, it means that you don't need to go out and spend that Guehi money on a centre back straight away. You can wait till the summer to do that, and you can reinvest in a position that we might need. Because then you think about it, we play a back 4, we have Lacroix and Richards as the starters, and then you can have Canvo, Lerma as backups, Chadi Riyad coming in as a backup as well. And it just means that you've got 5 players for 2 positions instead of 5 players for 3 positions, and it just shores up the depth. You can spend the 35 whatever it is million elsewhere in a position that we do need. And I just think that's the smarter way to go about things. And ultimately as well, like the only thing we should be playing for now is the Conference League. I'm not being funny. Like, who actually cares about the Premier League? We should survive. You know, obviously focus on surviving at least, but everything should be going into the Conference League because we can win that tournament. Like, we absolutely can win it. And there's no reason why we shouldn't. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be putting everything towards doing that.
Yeah, I was actually going to go into that Conference League and discuss that as well, but you've answered it perfectly for me there in terms of I fully agree. We've got to do an Ange Postecoglou and sacrifice the Premier League. And
Should we get Ange in?
Can't believe I'm saying that. I actually saw someone say Ange and Inaki, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
That's bad. Someone do Frost Roy.
Yeah. Big Sam, get the Uber Eats advert back into play.
Jesus.
But it's surreal that this is. It's so sad, and for me, that's the big thing about this. It just shouldn't be ending like this. Even if it ended after 2.5 years and ends in the summer, it just shouldn't be ending mid-season with toys out the pram. For me, both him and Parish, it's an ego problem now. They're both trying to swing around.
Yeah, who's got the biggest willy? That's basically
exactly. They just need
so embarrassing.
They just need to like put that to one side, accept what's going to happen, just decide how it's going to work this next 6 months, get through it. Because for me, Steve Parish, this is one of the biggest decisions coming up of his career, and I could see why he kind of wanted to delay that decision, see what's available in the summer, because the next manager is possibly going to have to deal with no Wharton, no Mateta, no Munoz possibly, because he's always spoken about wanting to go. That's 3 big players.
But then you'd think they'd also be coming into a situation where if even those 3 went, you'd have at least 150, 200 million to spend. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of like, but you're completely right. It's a massive call because it's now the next project, right? It's the new start. And you know what? I completely agree with you as well. It was sad because after match of the day, they played that interview, the long form kind of like kind of just lifestyle interview with him after match of the day last night, and I had it on, and it was just really weird watching it because he was so calm and like being so positive, and it's like, shit, he was literally like just lying this whole time. Like, it's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
And
really
he's like, even in that, he's like, oh yeah, we don't know what the future's going to hold. Like, I really love Palace, and like, you never know what could happen. Talks haven't taken place, and I'm just out there like, you lying bastard. Like, he knew exactly what was happening the whole time. So I don't know. I think that's probably also an element that's caused a bit of an issue between fans. And I mean, you were at the game yesterday. From what I've seen on socials, he got like booed and told what for when he walked over.
He kind of didn't even walk over. I think he kind of came like out the dugout onto the pitch, not very far away from the halfway line, did a couple seconds clapping, turned around, headed back, and that's kind of what probably received the main reason for the boos were, apart from the bad performance. You know, people like that just felt a bit pathetic.
It's a long old way to go as well. My little brother drove up, and he went up on Friday on my birthday, and he stayed at mate's halfway on the way up, and then he's getting back later tonight. So he's a whole weekend out the way, all of that money spent, and that was the performance. And also, I thought he tried to go down the tunnel, and his like assistant, I don't know what her job role is, but the one that sits next to him in the kind of press conferences, like the Palace PR officer or whatever, she was like, no, you need to go and clap those fans. This is not going to go down well. But you could probably kind of tell from that point that something was going to kick off.
Yeah, he's.
But it's crazy, man. I couldn't believe it.
This man, I got up at like 6 a.m. yesterday, got back at like midnight. just after. Like, it was a long day, and just, you know, if it was the first half performance, I know the goal we conceded in the first half weren't great, but if it carried on like that for the whole 90, you're fine. You know, you carry on even if we did lose. You could tell it was like a fully passionate performance. But yeah, it was just so frustrating, and yeah, it's clearly just boiled over. But the fans, we're the ones getting hurt the most right now. Glasner can leave. Parish loves the club, of course, but you know, he will eventually leave at some point. He will have that back seat again. These two need to sort it out, because we are sorry, I got distracted by that. We are fans are traveling all over, including Europe. We've played like 40 games already this season. It's a slog. You know, we're doing a lot, and we just want to see the passion and everyone who's at the club care and put their own pride to one side and, you know, fight for the badge. You know, managers, owners, players, they will always leave. The fans will always be there. So, you know, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. It's really crazy. Next manager, I have no clue where we're going to go. Again, that's why I think Parish did delay the possible sacking of Glasner. I can't even believe I'm saying that. But it's such a hard decision, isn't it, mate? Do you have anyone you'd like to see in, or just like a short list of managers you think could do well to do that rebuild that we're talking about? Multiple players, a whole new team, kind of.
Excuse me. I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of names thrown around, but genuinely, I've not got a clue. Apparently, the club have always liked Roger Smith, but he's not been in work for a while since he left Benfica, I think, which was like quite a while ago now, like 2 years ago that he left Benfica. So he's not been in work for that long. I don't really know much else about kind of his tactics and ideologies, but you know, there'll be names. I think this is always the thing, is that I don't think many of us knew who Oliver Glasner was before his name was kind of mentioned, or anyone was kind of aware of that possibility, and he came in and did what he did. And so I'd just say it's just a case of waiting and see. I'm sure there'll be loads of rumours coming around. If Thomas Frank leaves Spurs, I would not be surprised. Excuse me, if we went and got him. I think that I don't know if he's the perfect fit, but like I could see that happening. You know, it kind of makes sense. Just do a little manager swap between them. But who knows?
Too much.
I don't hate it. You know, he did well with Brentford. I know that Keith Andrews is doing better than he was doing at Brentford, but he did well. And ultimately, you know, being a mid-table Premier League side is probably kind of our level, unless, you know, we go and find like the next Andoni Iraola or the next Marco Silva or the next Oliver Glasner. And that's kind of what you got to hope for. One good thing to come from it, though, is that our manager and Brighton's manager are no longer going to be best buddies. So that's quite nice. Finally, an end to that bollocks.
That's so true. Yeah, I do feel like we've been too nice lately. Like the team, we're too nice on the pitch. It has felt a bit too nice, and I think when we're suffering, when we're no wins in 10, because of that, you don't see, you know, a bit more fight. You know, because they want to be smooth with it. They want to not be as physical or a threat or whatever, and it does affect us. I've seen someone in the comments. Be sure to like the live as well if you are watching. Someone in the comments, and honestly, I don't know if I'd be able to go anymore if this was the case. He is a good manager, but they're saying Marco Silva's out of contract. I just don't like him as a person. So that would actually kill. Like,
he's such a whiny prick, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the issue.
He's like, it's one of them where you go from having Glasner, who doesn't really complain other than when he does, to Marco Silva, who complains every single week. You would be listening to, oh, it's not fair, it's not, and then ultimately that impacts you as fan base, because that's what happens to Fulham. It's the same as Arsenal. Why do loads of people hate Arsenal fans? Because they really don't like Mikel Arteta, because he also is a bit like that. Like, there's always an excuse for everything, and it makes it so unbearable. I don't think I could deal with that either.
Yeah, I don't know who I want. I actually think Frank would be up there for me as one of the top options. I'm seeing the bookie suggesting Kieran McKenna. Don't know if he would do that, especially if Ipswich did get promoted. But again, I don't know if it's one that excites me either. And or we go abroad and we go to a manager, maybe
not Borderlass. Don't even say that name. Honestly, if you think any sort of football you have ever seen at Palace is bad, you do not want to watch Borderlass ball. Trust me on that. It is like it's basically Tony Pulis on steroids. You don't want that.
You know what? The only reason I would is because I just want us to be absolute menaces for every other team. I want every other team to hate us. you know.
Be like the mid-table version of Arsenal.
Yeah, literally just get all that in the headline and stuff. Are there any kind of final comments you want to say about the whole situation? Is there any final thoughts? Because we could obviously go on forever, but we'd just be repeating ourselves.
Yeah, I think just for the most part, like with any stuff around this, just like appreciate the people that are trying to share information with you. Nobody's doing it to try and upset you or try and misguide you. That's including myself and literally anybody else as well. I've seen loads of other journalists get loads of fucking stick from this whole situation. It's a situation that's going to change quickly. Also, he should be sacked. That's my thoughts on it. I think that you can't say the things he said about players, about fans, about just about the club in general. Really, you can't throw your toys out the pram like this. It's embarrassing. And ultimately, I think that Parish has called his bluff. I think that he's gone, all right, then if you want to leave, you can walk, but we're not going to sack you. And I think that's kind of a very smart play. So I think Parish has probably done the right thing, which I don't normally say, but fair play to him. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I just really hope that Glasner actually tries to win us games. I think if we lose against Chelsea, I think he'll be sacked either way, to be honest. I just can't see it lasting much longer if we continue to lose games.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm also happy he's still at the club. I don't want it to end badly. I really don't want him to be sacked, but that's definitely still on the cards. Cave from Sky is kind of like Parish's mouthpiece ever since the summer, and he's suggesting that it's not over in terms of possibly being sacked. Depends how the next month goes. Depends how much he moans again about lack of signings, etc.
But this is the thing as well. Like, he's just every interview now, every single interview until the end of the January window, and then afterwards is just going to be about, do you still feel abandoned, Oliver? How do you feel now? Do you feel like the club have backed you properly? This topic is never going to disappear. It never will. And it will be asked in every single interview, and it's just going to cause more and more issues, because ultimately when he's asked those questions, what happens? He bites and it explodes. Like, that's a massive issue as well. That's why there's another reason I don't understand the not sacking him, because this is a walking PR disaster. He can essentially blow up at any time and say whatever he likes about the club, because he's done it already. Like, especially if he still feels angry and not backed, and he might just want vengeance and he might just come out swinging again and again and again. I just think it's a massive problem.
Yeah, I think the only reason I think he won't carry on exploding is because it's just going to affect his future elsewhere. Like, the discussion point will be in any Man United fan channel or any Man United next manager topic. But did you see how he kicked off against Palace? Surely that's not going to work at Man United, because that's literally why Amorim got sacked.
You've already seen it. You've literally seen that on loads of their media stuff already in the last day.
His reputation's taken a hit over the last month. People are starting to understand why Palace fans spoke about the low block a lot. People are understanding that, and that's and now fans are like, can he make that jump? Because if he does, he's going to be against the low block
all the time.
80% of his future managerial career. So, there's huge pressure on him, and I think that's going to work in our favour. I think he's got to repair his reputation, and the only way he can do that is winning the Conference League and having us above 12th minimum in the division.
Yeah. Is Jose Mourinho free?
He might be. He might be for us because he likes us.
It's about time, man. That's what I'll say. It's about time.
Get him in. I mean, he'd be defensive, but I actually wouldn't care either. I think
because he'd also be an absolute nightmare, really. But it'd be hilarious because it's Jose. So I'd take it.
Yeah, and then all I'll say as well is it's going to be so tough to do this, but as fans, we've got to try and not put this on the players. That in the crowds, we can't be getting toxic, because that's just going to affect the players even more. And arguably, 90% of that squad that's there right now want to play for us, and they don't deserve that. They are caught in the middle of a very crappy situation right now, I think, and maybe they are got their heads down or whatever, and that's not good either. But they don't need more. This isn't on them right now. I think. I just think we'll see how it goes. Conference League is huge. Conference League is so big, not for just his future, our future, the things we could do next season if we had the Europa League, the manager we could possibly attract. It goes up a different level, and we could see that. And
it would be funny if he ended up at Spurs, who have no European football next season, and we end up winning the Conference League and have Europa League.
Yeah. Really weird, isn't it? Really weird. Spurs fans kind of don't want him by the few I'm seeing, but
It's the same as Man United. It's exactly what you said. It's because we've been kind of his flaws have been exposed recently, right? As a manager and also as a person, and ultimately, big clubs especially do not want characters that are going to call out the board. Do you think that he had a problem with Steve Parish? Can you imagine what he'd say about Ineos or what he'd say about Spurs' is kind of higher ups? It would just be a nightmare.
Yeah, and the only way to repair it for everyone involved is to start getting wins back on the board. I could see it happening against Chelsea, honestly, if we do have Munoz and Sarr back. They've not been special.
Is the final tonight, AFCON?
Tomorrow, tonight, 7:00.
Come on,
that'll be good. And, Chelsea haven't looked great. A lot of people saying Brentford should have won yesterday. I know they lost 2-0, but, if Brentford had better players taking them chances, they probably would have won. They're there for the taking, conceded 3 against Arsenal. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. As I said, if you are on the live stream, be sure to like. If you're watching this in the future as well, comment, let us know what you think about Glasner's situation. Was it the right or wrong decision from Steve Parish to not sack him? Let us know. And if you're following on Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review as well, because, it's great here. That's all for today, and we'll see you later.